Today's episode is brought to you by the Vegas Beer Guys and the Sounds in Cinema podcast. The Everything Sequel podcast contains explicit language. You have been forewarned. Hello and welcome to the Everything Sequel podcast. This is a Pink Panther edition. Today, we're going to Son of the Pink Panther. My name is Michael Shantz of the How Dare You Awards. Joining me, my one and only true Valentine, Tom Stewart of Lonesome Whistle Productions. Say hello, movie lover.
Your father played the violin, not well, but passionately. He made love the same way. More retconning as far as I'm concerned. I didn't get any of that from the Pink Panther.
No, yeah.
Why do you think Simone went off with David Niven?
Exactly.
I mean, to be fair, did he ever get the chance to, like, maybe if she wasn't continually cooking him, she would have found out he was a passionate lover, but the film
the film suggests that never happened.
In fact, it's something of a revelation that in this movie that Clouseau has ever successfully had sex.
Yeah,
this is proof that he's what's the phrase from Moonraker?
You would have to answer that question.
Attempting re-entry.
1 minute 28 seconds.
I think he's attempting re-entry, sir.
The only thing I would truly believe that Clouseau has made love to in these movies is the Green Hornet, and that's why it's falling to pieces.
Oh, the Silver Hornet. I mean,
Silver Hornet. Sorry,
I don't know why I'm questioning you on that, because clearly it is really the Green Hornet. Except they're not allowed to use that.
They're not allowed to use that verbiage.
Intellectual property. Yeah, I mean, so there's no need to correct you on that. But I just for everyone's verification, you mean the Silver Hornet?
Other than I'm wrong,
an entirely different vehicle.
Well, here we are. We're talking our second favorite movie in the back half of this series for some reason.
Which says more about the back half of these movies than the movie itself, I think.
It sure does. It's Son of the Pink Panther, a late film in the series, 1993 film, directed by Blake Edwards, with 6% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Oh, wait a.
What, that doesn't track for you?
Well, what were the percentages for Trail and Curse? Weren't they like in the 20s or the 10s?
Yeah, that sounds right.
Well, so...
Curse at 29%.
This story has a beginning, a middle, and an end, for fuck's sake. That should at least give it 10 plus.
Trail at 23%.
That is...
With Revenge
wow.
all the way at 84%.
I mean, even the most virulent Benigni hater has got to admit that he's an improvement over Ted Was. And that he is recognizably a comedian.
I agree with you. But
I know you do.
But I can imagine a world in which somebody watches this movie and just flat out says, trying too hard. Trying too hard.
Yeah.
When Sellers does it, it all feels effortless.
Sure.
With Benigni, it feels full effort.
Yeah, effortful. It's as we said in the ranking episode, this is effortful comedy.
Yeah.
But as far as effortful comedy goes, he's pretty much the master of it.
Well, master, I also remember saying in the ranking episode, 1 out of every 2 jokes works.
Well,
50%, not bad. You're batting 500, you're doing okay in baseball. But
welcome to the Blake Edwards Casino. You will be here for some time.
Ding, 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 ding.
Oh, yeah. Well, I don't know. I mean, there's some... I encourage everyone out there, including you, to watch Night on Earth, at the very least, where he plays a taxi driver who kills a priest.
That does sound hilarious.
Who's a passenger in his car, simply by, but he comedies him to death. I mean, it's literally, he kills him with comedy.
Was the cab dressed up like something?
No, I mean, he's telling a sustained comedic monologue that is so shocking, a kind of aristocrat style story, that it kills the priest.
Okay.
So he kills him with a long-winded joke, essentially.
Nice.
I think Jim Jarmusch really understood how to use Roberto Benigni as a tool in his movies in a way that no one else has quite figured out, I think. Including
Benigni himself?
Least of all Benigni himself. I mean, if you look at his IMDb, that he's made like seemingly hundreds of Italian movies that not only has no one ever heard of, but I don't think have ever left the shores of the boot for distribution. So it's not fair to judge him on this, but there are some English language Benigni films that are high quality, and all of them are directed by Jim Jarmusch.
Okay.
He needs.
It's kind of like Quentin Tarantino. Like Quentin Tarantino, you only want to see him on screen when Robert Rodriguez is in charge of him.
Yeah,
we've talked about that. Yeah.
Well, I would go further and say there has to be at least one Tom Waits track in the movie. Preferably Tom Waits is in the movie as well.
With him, yeah.
And I don't know, it all seems to work. But this is not, I'm not saying this is an example of that, but I feel, I don't know, the 6% makes me jump to the defense of Roberto Benigni, the history's greatest Holocaust clown. I mean...
Objection, Your Honor. Objection, I say.
I mean, it's not stiff competition. It's him and Jerry Lewis in a film that no one's ever seen. But apart from that, he's the king of the Holocaust clowns.
I'm sure everybody would like that on their gravestone.
Well, Jerry Lewis didn't want that on a gravestone. That's why he ensured no one ever saw that fucking movie the day the clown cried.
Okay. Well, let's move on. This movie starts, as always, with the MGM logo and the UA logo. UA logo's back. But this movie has no patience for anything, including a cold open. We're just straight to the animation. And at first, I wrote down a Bobby McFerrin-influenced song.
Yes.
And credits. And then I wrote, right underneath that, I wrote, hang on.
Yeah.
I think this might be Bobby McFerrin.
And then I did exactly the same as you, and then I also went, it also sounds a little bit like Michael Winslow. Is this also Michael Winslow?
I can't believe you said that. I had the same thought.
But I don't think it was. It was Bobby McFerrin. I mean, it was all a cappella, but...
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it just seemed like, it was so funny, because we talk about the things that, people are... I mean, these series themselves, we had an animated title sequence earlier in the series that involved Pac-Man. And we just thought, okay, this series in particular just seems to glom onto anything that's popular at the time.
Yeah.
But immediately when I heard the music, I thought, oh man, they really thought, and he was. I mean, it's not that Bobby McFerrin wasn't popular at the time, but I just thought, what a specific thing to care about.
Well, the other thing, when it started, I thought, is this going to feel like a 90s movie, or is this going to feel like a movie from the 60s or 70s, that is kind of masquerading as a 90s movie?
Yeah, but when Robert Davi shows up, it feels
that's it.
Feels like License to Kill.
I was immediately set right on that, because it looked like the opening title, looked and sounded like the opening titles of Seinfeld.
You're right. You're right.
I mean, even down to the a cappella.
Yeah.
I mean, it's yeah. So and in terms of the animation,
it's also different because we're mixing animation and live action.
Yeah. So I think they made quite an effort here to exhibit what had changed in animation since the last Pink Panther movie, which is the advent of 3D computer animation and hybrid animation, as exhibited by, Who Framed Roger Rabbit a few years before.
Mm-hmm.
So I think all of that's going on, and I kind of watched it and I was like, this is dated but in a nice way. Like, it's actually quite an elegant solution to a series which has kind of straddled so many different eras that we're sort of, this is like a kind of an inventory of what's happened in animation and music since these movies first came out.
Yeah, I'm not sure I look at anything in this movie and the word elegant comes to mind, but I know what you mean.
Well, but it's also, you're so right that it's kind of, it's such a specific time, and also, you're reminded that it's pre-digital because we have the film burning up.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, you can't do that joke for many more years in animation because no one will know what the fuck you're talking about.
No one will know what it is.
I mean, even in like the early 2000s in The Simpsons, they have the projector going on fire, and then Principal Skinner pulls out a DVD and stamps on it. So already you've got to adjust for the coming of the digital age. But we're also, in terms of like because we are sort of cutting the cord on a lot of what we're used to from these animated sequences. But in terms of what they keep is this sort of behind the scenes quality of the title sequence, that it's sort of like a day in the life of trying to make a movie when an animated panther is continually trying to prevent you from doing that, which is what all these title sequences seem to be. and it looks difficult. It looks difficult to make a Pink Panther movie whilst a Pink Panther is continually up in your mix,
mucking about. But they also take a big swing in the sense that this is the first time we're gonna see a non-Clouseau animated, and we have an animated Benigni rolling around in these fucking credits.
And I'll tell you the extent to which this is a problem, that even knowing full well that Roberto Benigni was the star of this movie, when the title sequence began, I fully expected this still to be Clouseau. The Peter Sellers version of Clouseau. The Peter Sellers / Alan Arkin version of Clouseau. Because remember, they never made any adjustment to the animated version.
To the animated, right.
But it's that I think the movie is as wary as I am about this, because there's no big introduction. It's almost like they're trying to slip Benigni under our noses, because he pops up from that little, that pile of film, and then he goes right back in like a gopher or something.
Well, because he's gonna disappear from the film entirely for the first 15 minutes at least. We don't get introduced to him for a while. Yeah, so I think the movie is it's happy for you to forget that Benigni is the star of this movie.
Yeah. If you think about what the ratio of Panther and Benigni in this is nowhere near the ratio of Clouseau and Panther in these sequences in previous movies.
Yeah, right.
It's the Pink Panther featuring cartoon Roberto Benigni. Special guest Roberto.
Special guest Clouseau.
Yeah.
Well, my next note is that the movie opens up with bad guys watching female karate, and I can't decide if this is like an inappropriate viewing watching, or if they're just trying to figure out the best way to best her in a fight.
Yeah, I think it's the latter. But...
Like, is it research, or are they just watching a hot woman do karate? Because it's filmed like they're watching a hot woman do karate.
It's a little from column A, a little from column B, because Robert Davi is involved.
Right.
Yeah. Well,
Big Johnson.
The first Big Johnson. The first bad guy you see is a very 90s looking bad guy. He's got a polo shirt, a mullet, muscles, and he's working for Robert Davi. So he really couldn't get any more early 90s if he tried. But I mean, obviously, I'm all over this. I'm all over this opening because I would say it's not even a Bond movie in disguise. It's just a Bond movie.
Uh-huh. Well, because it's Robert Davi, it all feels so Licensed to Kill.
It feels like license. It's so weird because in the Bond timeline, we're in the dark ages between the end of the Dalton era and the beginning of the Brosnan era,
right?
And you've got an actor from License to Kill, and then you've got scenes that, even though the movie's not been made, seem to reference GoldenEye. And this whole boat-based kidnapping opening is something that happens at the beginning of GoldenEye. And I know I'm usually the one to point out these comparisons, but I feel like this was a low bar. I didn't have to do much reading in to pick up on this. The weirdest thing happened to me today. For reasons that
you met Ted Wass. No.
You're like, oh, that explains that big bruise on his head. No. For reasons that are too long-winded to go into, I had to download VLC player.
Okay.
This isn't the big. I know this sounds like the beginning of an infomercial. It's not. There's a story coming out of it that is non-commercial. And they had they have like a demonstration screen of like what videos you could make or what videos you could download. And bearing in mind we're in 2025 and I was doing this entirely for professional purposes on my work server.
Work computer, yeah.
The thing that was coming out is you could watch GoldenEye. I'm like, why? Is it me? Have I affected the algorithm to that extent that they're just like, no, show him a Bond film.
School wide.
You show him a Bond film, we'll pay whatever you want. So that was a really odd thing today. I had to look twice and make sure I wasn't hallucinating, because I see GoldenEye. I see GoldenEye
everywhere.
Places where there aren't GoldenEye.
Yeah,
but this
right.
was GoldenEye.
Quality video game, tell you that much.
Well, it was one of the great conversions properties, wasn't it? That people loved the video game as much as they loved the movie and vice versa.
Right.
I have a question for you.
All right.
You've watched this series as recently as I have.
I thought maybe you were coming for an accusation, like I didn't do my homework. I've just been talking out of my ass for 9 movies.
Is this the first time we've had a villain in Robert Davi that was meant to be scary and intimidating in a Pink Panther movie?
Ooh.
Who wasn't immediately comicalized? Or eventually comicalized?
I think you're right. I wonder...
This is so straight. I mean, it's played so straight for the first 10, 15 minutes, and...
Yeah.
Especially, Davi doesn't do anything funny ever.
I think they try to go down this lane for revenge.
Yeah.
With what's his name? The head of that corporation, but he never really gets there.
I want to say Robert Wagner, but it's not Robert Wagner. Robert Webber.
Robert Wagner lookalike.
The initials are the same, and he kind of looks like him, but it's Robert Webber.
Okay, fine.
Yeah, and Robert Luzia, of course.
Gotta drink your OJ, Jimmy.
But this just really struck me that there's no twist on this. And I was trying to think about like what's the impetus behind it, and is it the flood of action movies into the market that determines that choice? That they actually want an action movie villain as opposed to someone for Clouseau to pay off.
Well, and we're in a post Die Hard time now, where you want to try to give play to and the second movie, but you're trying to give play to the villains.
Yeah.
I think film is moving in that direction where you want an interesting bad guy. And there's different ways you can do that. I mean, Hans Gruber is both menacing and funny.
Yeah.
Davi, I've got a note somewhere here at the bottom of my note. Like, Davi is pretty menacing, or trying to be menacing throughout this whole movie. And then at the end of the movie, out of nowhere, he's the most gifted physical comedian out of anybody in this movie. But we'll get there.
Yeah, for sure. He ends up looking like Bill Murray's ex-partner in Scrooged when he gets blown up.
Right. Yeah.
Who's that? Is played by someone famous, isn't it? Who plays his ex?
Yeah.
His Jacob Marley is like.
Yeah.
Is it Dick Cavett or something?
No,
like that?
it's not Dick Cavett. It's damn it. See, but he's one of those guys that it's like a Robert. It's like a Robert Culp.
Yes.
He's like Robert Culp, but not Robert Culp. It's one of those guys. There's it's 5 actors that all look like Robert Culp who are not Robert Culp.
That used to be the note, and now it's Bill Cosby, but not Bill Cosby. Like, the I Spy thing has changed now. We used to say, now we're fine with a Robert Culp type. We're just not fine with a Bill Cosby type. John Forsythe, right?
John Forsythe. Yeah, I got it.
Is he, was he in Dallas? John Forsythe?
That sounds right. No?
I mean,
I didn't watch Dallas.
To be fair, I'm profiling him by his hair, if I'm being perfect. His hair and his tan.
Dynasty. I think it's Dynasty.
Dynasty. I think you're right.
Yeah.
I mean, well, he was.
Is he the voice? Is he the voice of Charlie and Charlie's Angels?
Don't. Well, it's on Charlie's Angels is on his IMDb, so I expect that must be right. Yeah. I love that we're amazingly finding time to talk about someone who's not even
not in this fucking movie.
because one of the actors not in this movie, in another movie in this series, reminded me of this actor.
Well, that's not our fault. That's this series' fault. Because this
there
series
isn't a lot to talk about here. Maybe
is a schizophrenic monster that are using new actors, taking old actors, putting old actors into new roles,
right?
Using actors for once. When you talk about Dr. Balls and the fact that it's being played by 2 different people, bookended.
Yeah.
On one end by one actor with a different actor. These movies are fucking weird.
I mean, outside of Becky and Roseanne, I can't think of a time that's happened with an actor where they've been recast and then recast again. To the point where they had that. I think they were doing it so often in Roseanne that they put in a meta joke with, like, whenever she came on, when if she came on camera, they would pause the scene and say, playing Becky in tonight's episode, and then they would the actor. So.
I didn't see that. That's good.
Yeah. I mean, there's big holes in my note because there was nothing much worth commenting on, and so my next...
The beginning of this movie is just a lot of weird, like, she's talking with Dad in the limo, and then she's, at the casino gambling, but thinks Robert Davi is a bodyguard.
Right.
Like, all this non-consequential shit until she gets kidnapped, until they attack the boat the next day.
And I think that's where I really thought this was intentional Bond pastiche when they got to the casino. I think if you're starting the movie with a casino scene, you're marking your territory. At that point, I think
Robert Davi.
It leaves nothing left for it leaves nothing but piss for GoldenEye to mop up.
Robert Davi's dick is out and he's peeing all over the place.
Yeah, and it's so weird. It's a little bit like Wilford Brimley's mustache. Like, I superimpose an iguana on his shoulder whenever he's on screen. A Mandela effect iguana. If you'd have asked me, does he wear an iguana on his shoulder?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I'd be like, I'm more confident that he did than if he didn't.
Yeah.
But my next note is the introduction of Benigni, even though, as you say, it's a good 15-20 minutes into the movie before we actually see him.
Yeah, the only other note I have is when they actually do kidnap her, it was one of those moments where I thought...
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, But I remarked that
We haven't mentioned the plot.
Edward still cares about filming action, and he's filming it well.
Yeah.
So
I agreed. Yeah, so I think that that certainly makes it easier to take that this begins really as any early 90s action movie would.
In regards to what you were saying, though, when we get introduced to Benigni, because it's preceded immediately before we meet him with a car crash in which Dreyfus gets into a car crash with Davi, and nobody's...
Two great supervillains.
It's not nobody. Like, if you're Robert Davi and you have a kidnapped human in the back of your truck, but he's like inviting the cops to go look at her, and there's like guys in the back with guns. Nobody's acting like they should. But I don't care about any of that as much as I care about... I didn't realize this until the end of the film, but when Benigni crashes his bike into them and then flips over, and he gets up and he says, that felt good. And he says it like... By the end of the film, you realize that because he says it a second time, that they're trying to make this the great next line of, it's like that's a spicy meatball. They think this is the start of something genius.
Yeah.
But I had to go back and make sure that he said the same thing at the beginning that he said at the end, because when it came up at the end again, I thought, do they think that's funny?
That's typical.
Does that strike them as hilarious?
Well, I got 2 points to make about that. One, that's very typical of sequels to act like a line that you've just invented is a catchphrase that a character's been saying all along.
Forever, right?
It's quintessential to the series. So there's that element. And also, like, when I was trying to come up with quotables, and spoiler alert, I haven't used any Benigni lines as quotables because they're gibberish. They wouldn't make any sense just in audio form. It's really hard to distinguish a single line of dialogue that man says at any given time.
Yeah.
So maybe they were like, that felt good is as close as we got to a self-contained line of dialogue. So that's going to be his catchphrase by default. I don't know.
I'll tell you the one thing I did like. When he flips over and he does say the line, and Blake Edwards cuts to just a close-up of Dreyfus. And this is one of the moments where he does an eye twitch where it's just like an extended close of one eye for a moment. And it was one of those things where I wrote down that Herbert Lom is still finding ways to make that eye twitch funny. He's still working on the bit because because it was reflexive. Not of Clouseau, but of someone who reminds him of Clouseau and felt involuntary in a way that really struck me as funny. So I really liked that moment.
It's more like seasonal allergies.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's sort of like there's a kind of musk that surrounds anyone who is biologically a Clouseau, and he's allergic to that musk.
Right.
But I mean, there are the interesting thing, and I guess what I was kind of clinging to was that at least they're doing something different, because they're not trying to make him a clone of Peter Sellers or even the Clouseau character. Yeah. They see him more they introduce him with a reference to Jacques Tati, his film Jour de Fée, where he's a mailman on a bike, postal worker on a bike, and it's the exact same shot of him riding in on the bike as you see in. So that, I think, weirdly, like, we talked about how Blake Edwards has tried to Americanize this series. Now he's trying to Europeanize it, but like real Europe, not like continental Europe, not fake British Europe, which is now no longer Europe.
Yeah. It's funny you say that, because as I was watching it, I felt like it was a reference to something, but I couldn't.
Yeah.
I couldn't recollect.
And they do it more. That's as subtle as they get. They obviously have him watching the Marx Brothers, and he's got the Laurel and Hardy statuettes on his mantelpiece, and so it all feeds into the same kind of idea. But it's a different kind of language, a verbal comedy as well, because now it's genuine language barrier comedy.
Yeah. As
opposed to the comedy of mispronunciation, which is what it was with Peter Sellers.
I wrote down, that's one of my next notes, was that stuff, like the accent stuff, was kind of funny. That was when I thought...
Yeah. And he's genuinely hard to understand.
Benigni was... Yeah, right.
So it's a different kind of humor, I think. And I kind of, I think I was going to say, how did I know? Well, the movie's called The Son of the Pink Panther. That's probably how I knew that he's, it's going to turn out that he's Clouseau's son. But I kind of thought, do we even need the familial connection? It's like, can we not just have a movie where it's another idiot that triggers Dreyfus in a different way?
Yeah, but I guess they tried that in the last film, and
well, but now they have a comedian, so.
But I was going to say in the last film
let's try it for real.
They had a piece of balsa wood trying to act, so. But I guess in their mind, it was like, we tried that once. Maybe it didn't work as well as we wanted it to. Yes, we have a more talented person, but let's connect.
Yeah. So, and as the movie went on, and the way in which his lineage comes out gets so tiresome so quickly, and inevitably, it means we have to kind of relitigate all the Pink Panther ensemble and locales. So it is a real albatross around the movie. So I think it could have been avoided, and I think it would have been better for Benigni as well to just kind of do. Well,
it doesn't help that you also have, what's her name, Claudia Cardinal as his mother, because she was the princess in A Shot in the Dark,
right?
Or Pink Panther, in the Pink Panther, and so the whole time, I was stuck in the position of, wait, what was her name before? She was Princess something.
I did the same
thing. Was it
thing.
Gambrelli? What's going on?
Character?
Is it the same person? Is it the same? What's going on? Did they end up fucking in that movie? I don't remember them fucking.
Yeah.
It took me down rabbit holes that I didn't want to be in, and I had to physically stop the movie to do research to figure out what the fuck was going on.
Yeah, well, this series, no matter how far we get forward into the future, they keep bringing legacy cast members back, but not as legacy characters.
Yeah.
So it's essentially saying that this is one big repertory company and anyone can play anyone at any given time. But it's weirder to do that in a 90s kind of update of the Pink Panther series.
Yeah.
Like, I sort of get retcon issues aside, the bringing back Herbert Lom, but that's really the only connective tissue you need.
Yeah.
Here. Everything else should have really been a clean break, I think.
Yeah, I think I think you're right about that. But they did what they did.
They did what they did. That's inarguable. They did what they did. Yeah. I was again thinking of Seinfeld when the two female action heroes started to have a fight. I was thinking, you did a cat fight.
Yeah.
Not that that's happened yet. This is again sort of future stealing from a Seinfeld episode, but it certainly added to the weird kind of overlap of the two. But also, Edwards is just watching it like... I mean, you mentioned that the whole movie starts with basically filming a woman exercising, and this is kind of subjecting the viewer to the same thing, I would say.
Yeah. He likes that shit.
He really does.
But I also, because I have a note here, I kind of wish they went down this avenue a little clearer and a little bit better and did more with it. But I like the idea of the one police captain who kind of thinks he's fucking over Dreyfus by assigning Gambrelli to him.
Yeah.
I like the idea of somebody
Anton
out
Rogers,
of
yeah.
out of spite, sort of giving him his imbecile, which is not unlike the imbecile that he's been dealing with for decades.
Yeah.
I like that idea, but I wish it was a little more clearly drawn and other than the initial foisting him on him, it's not really it's not central to any kind of the plot. But it would have been interesting to see this movie go in the direction where they're focused on these two just fucking with each other. I think that would have been a lot of fun.
I think it would have helped if they'd have cast another Italian actor in that role, because it's played by Anton Rogers, who is probably the most British man. He's now like stuffed in taxidermy in the Natural History Museum in Britain. 1980s British man. I mean, he was the patriarch of every British sitcom I watched when I was growing up. So it's like you kind of, I don't know, you can't, because you've got Claudia Cardinale, who is sort of Italian film royalty, and you've got Roberta Benigni, who is nationally specific as well. And it's kind of weird to have Anton Rogers from May to December in the middle of it. And I suppose that, that's what the series, I mean, Herbert Lom, I think, is genuinely European, but I think he's British, at least. He grew up in Britain. He was certainly a British character actor as far as anyone's kind of concerned in terms of the movies he was in.
Well, when you pass on, I'd like to see you stuffed and put into one of our museums as America's British man. And the little plaque would say he loved James Bond and The Simpsons.
I tell you what, I love the idea that in the future, scientists are gonna find, like anthropologists, paleontologists even, we're gonna find my bones, and it's gonna confuse them. It's gonna like make them question their theories about like what the bodies of Americans look like. Because like, hang on a minute here, this is more consistent with what we found way over there. And of course, these are apes doing this, in my mind.
Yes, of course. And they'll trace it back to those fucking birds that were taking the top layer of cream off your fucking milk.
And now I'm exactly. And now I'm imagining that his immune system is deficient because the magpie stole the real good antibodies in his milk. Yeah, and now I'm imagining the scene in Planet of the Apes with the talking doll, with
yeah.
Would a British men like The Simpsons?
All right, well, we've got a good start. Why don't we take our first break and then we'll come back?
I'm about halfway through the movie. I don't know about you with my notes.
Is it going to be another two-parter only?
It could be. You're right to call it now.
We'll find out when we come back, right after this.
I like to think I know something about beer, but nowadays even I get overwhelmed when confronted by the exhaustive selection of craft beers they have at bars, breweries, and even grocery stores. Back in the day you had one, maybe two craft beers to choose from, and if you were confused, you ordered a Guinness. But in beerstinations like San Diego, the craft beer options lately are in double, sometimes even triple digits. So what's a beer drinker to do? You need what I need, the Vegas Beer Guys. Your beer of choice should be a perfect blend of malt and hops. And so a live show about beer needs that same balance. And the Vegas Beer Guys matches beer expert Dan Aker with self-proclaimed beer novice Stephen J. Weiss. The results are eminently drinkable.
They're on Facebook. They're on Instagram. They'll try new beers. They'll tell you about beers. Think of them as your beer Sherpas guiding you up a foamy-headed mountain to reach the peak of your pint. God, I need a beer.
And we're back. Here we are, talking Son of the Pink Panther, directed by Blake Edwards. Let me tell you something. To bring back an old joke, I really thought that this would be the grandma kicker of this entire fucking series. So for it to be at number 2 in both our lists, I don't know. I think it's quite remarkable.
And there's a couple of sequences coming up now which I, unironically enjoy. The cement bike.
I was going to say, the bike in the cement.
I mean, it's like it's visual silent era comedy, but it's back to basics. But opposite of how they did back to basics in the last movie, which was they had someone who didn't know what they were doing, who was a basic learner, shall we say? But this is this is someone who knows the fundamentals of a visual comedy.
Well, there's also that scene. I think it's after the bike, right?
Yes,
when they get into the hospital. And there's one shot of them just following Benigni around with others following him. I thought in this stupid 1993 comedy, the 8th movie at least in this fucking series, Blake Edwards is finding a way to make this hospital action scene, or not action, but it's intriguing. It's it's spies and assassins following people.
It looks like ER, like a few years before there was ER. Yeah. So I think he's he's a director who likes to keep the camera rolling, right? He's not someone who cuts unnecessarily, and I think he's found a way to sort of adapt that to the kind of, for want of a better term, shaky cam quality of the era, which I mean, NYPD Blue is already, I think, kind of parallel with this. They're doing a lot of the same things with the camera, so it's like economically and technologically, stylistically,
they just start scenes.
This is where we're going.
Outside of the precinct with a shaky move, and
well, that was it. I mean, I know I did a lot of research into NYPD Blue when I was an academic, and
see, I thought you should have just said for no reason whatsoever. Just on my own.
Well, ultimately, it was for no reason whatsoever, but it felt like I had a reason at the time. Okay. I was writing about Stephen Bochco TV drama, and it kind of it's eventually it ended up just being the establishing shots that were that crazy, but they originally used to film the whole episodes like that, and then season 2, season 3 they started to kind of
tamper it down a bit.
Yeah, pull back and make it a more like a more attractive viewing experience. So it's interesting. Yeah, so also, like, straight after the cement bike, we get another piece of bike action, which is like a scene from a Luc Besson movie, or with the underground the bike chase.
Yeah, the chase
in the subway.
Yeah.
It's like something from the movie Subway, or Jean-Jacques Benot's Diva, if you will. But like it reminds me of all these over-stylized 80s movies made in France by people like Luc Besson, like Nikita.
When they stay above ground and Benigni goes underneath, I started thinking of The Dark Knight.
Yeah, which is where he got it. I think where he got it from.
I thought to myself, I think he fucking stole that from this movie.
The Son of the Pink Panther. Well, he loves his Bond movies, so maybe he was just like, well, I guess if I can't watch a Bond movie, I'll go out and watch Son of the fucking Pink Panther. It's like, oh, look, it's got Robert Darby in it. He must have been very happy with the first 15 minutes. He's like, ooh. This is clearly where I have to go for this kind of entertainment now.
But there's all kinds of good stuff with the bike moving forward and the cars bumping each other, and like with the trolley, and
it's, I mean, that those Luc Besson movies that I'm talking about all culminate with Taxi, which is what this the original Taxi before was it like Queen Latifah and Jimmy Fallon or something?
And Jimmy Fallon, yeah.
Is that? Am I right in the? Did
Yeah.
I guess the? I can't think of the name of one actor from movies that I love. Yeah, I can remember a movie Taxi, a movie I've never seen, features Queen Latifah and Jimmy Fallon. How the fuck does my brain work?
Welcome to my world. That's how
I
my
was
brain
just like,
works.
Robert Wagner is it, or
Yeah.
Robert
The other
Lowe's,
day, I was listening to a podcast, and somebody, I think it was Blank Check, and somebody
yeah, great podcast.
randomly brought up Groove Tube, and I'm like, gorilla with a television on his head? and all they said was, remember the poster, and then I looked up the poster, and there it is, like a gorilla with a television on its head. Movie I've never seen, but I clearly remember that poster.
Yeah. Crazy. But anyway, and I think tonally that's kind of what we come to here, like real action movies, but they're also comedies, like, simultaneously.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think that's what we're... So in a sense, I think that's ahead of the game a little bit too. I don't think that was commonplace even in the early 90s.
Yeah, I mean, I think... Well, we remarked for the Patreon about 48 Hours.
Yeah.
And talking about you want the action to be as good as it can be and the comedy to be as good as it can be. And the same for horror if you're doing both, that kind of thing.
Yes, exactly, yeah. Horror comedy.
And that's only, a decade and a year before this. But with the broad comedy like this, this feels really early.
Yeah. Yeah, there's even a bit of it in GoldenEye. We remember all those bikers on the on the mountain road. Anyway,
yeah,
that feels like a scene from this movie. It's so weird. There's so many overlaps. It's really off-putting. But I mean, we've talked about each subsequent film retcons the last one, and I guess here the big retcon is that everyone, for some reason, accepts that Clouseau is dead and not just a man walking around with Roger Moore's face.
Yeah, right.
Because Roger Moore Clouseau doesn't die at the end of Curse. Nope. But not only does everyone accept that he's dead, later we'll find out that he's dead enough to be buried. Well,
we'll see. I might retcon that.
and it would be within the spirit of the series. Yeah, no, I know. It's almost a footnote because this series has been retconned so many times, but
yeah.
I'm surprised that they were so definitive about him being dead. Like why couldn't he be missing, presumed dead?
Yeah, I don't. In my mind, I guess I just thought, they got Roger Moore once, and they're not going to get him again.
They could get him even easier in '93. What the fuck are you talking about? You could. Had he done the quest by that point? Probably not, actually. But so yeah, you'll get, if you want Roger Moore, you can get Roger. If you're Blake Edwards, you can find a way to get Roger Moore. Anyway, but they probably didn't go down that road. Yeah, although they're starting to. I suppose the difference with Claudia Cardinale from a previous movie, like for instance, if you compare it to Joanna Lumley, where no one even made reference to the fact that she was playing two different characters in back-to-back movies, but here they do make a point of Claudia Cardinale because she says "not bad for a princess" and then metaphorically winks at the camera.
Yeah, right.
And I don't think that's something they would have done prior to the 90s, because that's more sort of the era of self-referential comedy. I suppose, the Roger Moore thing, the bit is self-referential, but it's also weirdly played straight. It's like, okay, that's Clouseau,
it's just him.
He's had plastic surgery to look like Roger Moore. It's not like there's no sense of Roger Moore is playing... Well, there is a sense that Roger Moore is playing this character, but it's not turned into a meta joke in the same way.
No, right.
Where actually, for the first time, she turns to the viewer and says, this, oh, look at this lack of continuity.
Yeah, right.
And that's the first time they've ever done that.
Mm-hmm.
They've ever even alluded to there being a continuity problem.
Because it's weird to say this, but because Roger Moore, he's got an ice bucket on his head and he's being ridiculous, but he's playing it straight.
It's like if Graham Stark playing Dr. August Balls, and Sellers is like, you look really familiar. You look like I'm sure I've met you before, or something like that. And they just haven't done that. But so it must be the '90s that's making them do that. I know that was the standard defense for all employees who went postal. The '90s made
me do it.
But I genuinely think they wouldn't have even considered doing it before the advent of self-referential comedy.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. But also, the other thing that's a kind of weird throwback, although we're starting to warm up to this becoming like every other Pink Panther movie,
right?
Is we're back again at this Eastern royalty, political coups in the Middle East.
Yeah.
There's no diamond to fight over anymore, but it's the same kind of it's sort of the same kind of backstory of these scheming Middle Eastern power figures.
That's one thing that's really weird about this movie, because they're always, who's the guy that they're always talking about? What's his name? I don't even know if I have it in my notes.
I have a question about him, but go on.
Well, I just think it's weird that all the bad guys are talking about the whoever it is, Omar or something like that.
Yeah.
Omar needs
Salah's
this.
brother, Omar.
Yeah.
Salah's
He needs
brother-in-law.
this. He needs that. And then you meet him, and 10 minutes later, he's gone out of the story. And I just thought, why didn't you just make Robert Davi the ultimate bad guy?
Right, the ultimate bad guy. And also, why do we have to have that Z-plot about his wife?
Yeah, right, exactly.
He's remarried to a dangerous, a femme fatale woman.
There's this whole subplot about him and his wife and his mistress.
Yeah. I wouldn't even call it a subplot. It's a bottom feeding.
Yeah.
Plot. It comes from the ocean floor. So is this guy this because it's Lugash? Did they say Lugash out loud? Did they ever say Lugash? I think they do, don't they?
She's from Lugash.
Why would you go back
her
to
father?
Lugash?
Her father is the king. King? Is that right? Or prime minister. What is he? He's got to step down. He has to abdicate the throne is what he has to do. Yeah. So I think he's the king.
But it's 93, so essentially he's Saddam Hussein, right?
Oh, because... Well...
But is he also Saddam Hussein from Hot Shots? There was a couple of shots where I looked at him and I thought, is this the guy who did Saddam in Hot Shots?
Yeah, that could be.
And if he was, this is his peak year in acting, because he's also like Hot Shots Part 2 and this. I don't know if it's the same guy, but there's the guy who played British Saddam Hussein in that episode of Seinfeld, which is. Do you know the dinner party episode where they just casually throw in a man who looks like Saddam Hussein double parks in front of George's car, so in order to find a way why George can't shout at the guy, because it's like, oh my god, that's Saddam Hussein, but he has a British accent.
Doesn't he come up to his car? He's like, so sorry.
Yeah. Sorry about the parking.
Yeah.
But
all right, where are we? Because are you past the assassin blowing up their house and the dog humping Dreyfus's leg? Like when because Dreyfus meets Mrs. or Ms. Gambrelli, his mother, and essentially falls in love at first sight.
I didn't pick up on that. I think I was fighting that because it just makes no character.
Makes no sense.
that he would be attracted to someone who's where Clouseau has been. I mean, I think he's more likely to throw that woman out of a window on first sight.
I know, but that's the thing that I like about this movie is that you can't help who you fall in love with, and it's the complete arc for Dreyfus that I was talking about in the Ranking movie, because he does a complete that's turnaround.
That's not an arc. That's a circle you're talking about. You're describing a circle.
But he gets to a place where not only would he embrace somebody who's been with Clouseau, but their offspring. So somebody with Clouseau blood, he's going to be willing to call son. That's quite a turnaround.
Well, so much so that he gets so comfortable with the idea, they have to add in a last-minute wrinkle with Benini's sister, twin sister / wife in Luke and Leia fashion.
And it took me a minute to realize that, because they don't really show the sister well at first. I mean, this is the very end of the movie, but when you're introduced to the sister, I was like, she looks familiar. Who is that? And then when I looked it up, I'm like, of course, it's his actual fucking wife, like the wife from Life is Beautiful. Okay.
Yeah, it's his wife from the Holocaust camp. Yeah, I was kind of, I didn't pick up on that, and then, I mean, then there's even weirder stuff romantically happens, because Benini ends up getting into the hostage. What do you call a place where you hold a hostage?
It's like a cell. They have her in a cell.
A cell. They have her in a cell. So he gets in there, and then you see them smoking cigarettes, so they fucked.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, right.
I mean, if ever there was a time for Benini to turn to the camera and say, "This never happened to the other fella," it was now, because Clouseau never got his oats during the movie.
Never, no.
It's implied maybe afterwards once.
Mm-hmm.
Once, maybe twice. At least in Peter Sellers' mind. I didn't mention I listened back to our revenge episode. I can't believe I didn't mention when we were talking about his wanting, like, fantasizing about being in a relationship with Diane Cannon and she wasn't interested, that he used to go on talk shows and talk about a non-existent affair he had with Sophia Loren.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, so he would basically talk about, because I think he made more than one movie with her. The Millionairess, maybe.
Okay.
He's just dropping hints left, right, and center that they slept together, and it's all in his mind.
Bullshit.
Yeah, all. And so this is definitely a trend with Sellers. But anyway, back to Benini. Unfortunately, Sellers isn't in this movie. But it's just what a weird. Again, do we blame the 90s? Is that that we feel more comfortable with this sort of just throwing in casual sex like this? But it doesn't fit the situation at all.
No, but
he shouldn't be able to sleep with her so easily.
For some reason, even though it doesn't have anything to do with mix-ups, it started reminding me of that Frasier episode where they all go to the cabin and everybody wants to hump somebody different. They're all,
that was pure Whitehall farce, wasn't it? They made it was the most unapologetically farcical episode, and I think it kind of pushed Frasier fandom to, like, it's like, are you from are you watching this because you like Cheers, or you're watching this because this is as close as America's going to get to Fawlty Towers, right?
Yeah.
It kind of put you in two very different Frasier fandom camps. It was a real test of your Frasier fan. It's like an online quiz. What kind of a Frasier fan are you? Watch this episode and you'll find out.
It's good shit.
Yeah. Oh, what, that or this?
No, that.
That, yeah. Okay, good. Just wanted to check. And then
now,
you get
I want to ask you about this bit of him coming in as the doctor for Robert Davi.
Yeah.
Because I was split right down the middle, where half these jokes I'm like on board for.
Yeah.
They were making me chuckle. And then Benini would go kind of over the top and try too hard. But the one thing I liked the whole time, Robert Davi in that scene is like the best straight man I've ever seen, where he's just looking at him. He's so funny.
Yeah. He's up there with George Sanders, I think.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think you can definitely do that. You can definitely do that with Davi.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of D's in that sentence. You can definitely do that with Davi.
Definitely do that with Davi. But it just seems to me that nobody has ever thought of that for him.
Well, the man
before.
himself has no sense of humor, right? I mean, he's famously political in the Trump direction of politics, and refuses to sort of, he's not even the Kelsey Grammer who can sort of entertain other people.
Mm-hmm.
He's like hardline.
Okay, I didn't know that.
Well, Matt Gawley tells a story about saying something about his politics on one of the James Bonding podcasts, and he kind of found him online and asked him to come to dinner so they could talk about it. So he ended up having dinner with Robert Davi.
Oh my God! So
they could talk out their political differences.
That's amazing.
And it worked as well. Like they kind of ended up getting on quite well. And then Gawley went to the bathroom, came back, and Davi had paid the check and all that sort of stuff. So that's a really nice story. But he's a horrible person. I'm not trying to get a free dinner by saying that, by the way.
I could go for some pasta, let me tell you. Ooh, that Davi is a real asshole.
I hear a knock at my door. Wow, that was fast. How did he hear that?
I thought it was going to be more a story about an attempted assassination. Like brought him to dinner and almost got throttled.
But can you imagine that situation? Because I can empathize with both sides of it, being, a giant Bond fan meeting one of the quintessential Bond villains, but at the same time knowing that they might try to kill you at some point in the evening. And like, how would you go into that situation?
Yeah.
It's like, is it almost worth it for the story that other people will tell about how you died at the hands of Robert Davi?
Right.
oh, Tom died at the hands of Robert Davi.
Let me tell you what I'm going to be. An HBO miniseries at some point.
Definitely, yeah. And Robert Davi would play
Robert
himself,
Davi mic'd up in a bathroom saying, "What are you doing? What are you doing?" I killed him, of course. That's what I did.
Robert Davi would play himself in all the reconstructions from prison.
Yeah, sure, why not? I'll do it.
Yeah.
But one of the moments, I don't know where you are in your notes, but
neither do I.
When they're like transferring them or something, and I thought this movie kind of gave up narratively when when he just falls out of the car that goes over the cliff.
Well, that's another symptom of what I noticed, because one of my next notes is, did I miss the scene where everyone spoke openly about this being Clouseau's son? Because you go straight into the hospital scene and they just talk. I mean, it's kind of admirable.
Oh, you mean with his broken leg?
Yeah, they just sort of go. They just talk.
I think you did miss the scene, because I think they talk about it openly in the house before it gets blown up.
I don't think they do. I think if you go back, they never get there. Like, too much chicanery happens before.
Oh, I think enough is said for him to say, "I know that this is his son."
Well, that's where I'm kind of mixed feelings, because I don't like the idea that they're just giving up on expository storytelling as a concept. But is it a be careful what you wish for situation? Do I want that scene? But I feel like, because the next time we see Benigni, he knows as well. We haven't had that scene where his mother tells him either.
Now that you might be right about.
We get the scene after he's told her, when he's coming to terms with it.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if they just... I mean, if Blake Edwards ever wants to cut a scene for the movie, who am I to object? He's probably made the right decision. I would like to encourage him to reuse that approach as much as possible.
I didn't need this movie to be the 1 hour 54-minute movie as well.
But it was jarring. I'm thinking, like, you've really only got one or two plot points in this entire movie. You can at least
you
just
can
go
indulge
through the
a little bit.
Yeah. with letting the giving the characters a chance to work that plot point out. But whatever. Did you think Dreyfus was going to die
When?
when he goes into
When the house
cardiac
blows up?
arrest? No, when he goes into cardiac arrest. They leave a kind of a cliffhanger where it's like, I don't know if Dreyfus is dead or alive or a vegetable or what.
You mean when Gambrelli comes into the room and fucks up the bed?
No, I think that's with the Marx Brothers, isn't it?
Yeah.
No, this is after he goes and he has a cardiac arrest and there's a whole, oh no, Dreyfus is gonna die.
Let me turn the page of my notes. See if I can find this fucking thing.
Why you don't remember? You don't remember that? Very.
I did say lots of hospital shit knocks the boss out a window.
Okay.
Is that it?
Yeah.
That's the other guy, though. That's the guy that tried to fuck Dreyfus.
See,
by giving him Gambrelli, right?
I think maybe he recovers from the cardiac arrest really quickly because then she goes upstairs. Because what's happening?
Because this is the moment that right after that. Because the other boss is in the bed next to him, and then Mom tells...
That's right, yeah.
...her that she's Clouseau's son, or that he's Clouseau's son.
Nobody says that, though. They just start talking about how they both know. Anyway, it doesn't matter. I don't know. It's not very responsible storytelling, but...
Well, I mean, give him a break.
I don't know. This hasn't been one of the problems of the series before.
True.
In the actual movies. Between movies, yes, but not in the actual movies. But so his mother goes upstairs to visit Jacques, Benigni Jacques. I was going to say Benigni Jacques. I'm going to call him Jacques from now on. That's the easiest way to... Jacques. And then they have an on-screen discussion about whether he's going to live up to the Peter Sellers name. In the guise of them talking about him finding out who his father is and embracing that legacy, they sort of say, hey, you might even be better than your dad was. Which is sort of like, I think that's more wishful thinking. The hopes and dreams of the screenwriters writ large on screen there, I think.
Right, yeah.
But he sort of gets his mission, which is to be Clouseau's son. In this scene.
Yeah.
And even though we've had no disguise-based comedy up until this point, aside from him putting on a white coat.
That's my next note as we go back to Dr. August Balls.
Crazy. Absolute. I mean, I think the reveal of parentage signals this second half retreat into pure remake territory.
Yeah, because, we talked about this once before, but they're recycling so many jokes.
Yeah.
From previous movies that we've already seen many, many times over.
And they've avoided doing that up to this point, I think. Aside from...
Not in Dr. August Balls. They recycle a lot of jokes.
No. But before... The first half of this movie doesn't do that.
No, yeah.
Aside from... apart from the verbal mannerisms that help...
Yeah, I see what you mean.
Dreyfus figure out that he's Clouseau's son, like the bump and the law... The lure kind of thing.
He says the lure. He's like, what'd you say?
But that's actually a plot point in a way. It's kind of, it's sort of used better than it's been for about 8 movies.
Mm-hmm.
But at this point, I mean, my note is back to balls. And I think that says it all about what's going on here.
Yeah.
And also, the wheel of legacy recasting, which the screenwriters obviously have in the...
Craziness.
When they're typing up this movie, they spin a big wheel which has actors' names on it and then just pick one randomly.
I think I told you in the ranking episode when I saw that it was back to Graham for Dr. August Balls, I just threw my fucking pen at the television and started cackling with laughter. I just thought, these movies, they don't give a fuck about anything.
I think this is the first time they show any self-awareness about that, because the way he reveals himself behind the curtain is almost acknowledging that you don't know who it's going to be until he emerges.
Until he comes out.
Yeah.
Ta-da! Well, I'll tell you what, because I'm about... I'm about at the place where I remember thinking to myself, I completely forgot about Kato, and Kato appears. That's where I am in my notes. So why don't we take that one last break? We'll make it 3 segments, and we'll come right back.
It was literally a surprise attack from Kato upon your memory.
It was, yeah. you get to a point where you're like, I don't think he's in this movie, but he's in my notes.
I don't think he should have been in this movie.
No. All right, we'll talk about it when we get back, right after this. If you like podcasts like I do, boy, do I have a treat for you. You need to
Stay on target.
and check out the Sounds and Cinema podcast. Listen as your host, sound designer and music creator Tony Parham, and co-host, musical performer and sound lover Derek Hansen, D-Rock if you're nasty, and I am, discuss all things sound related to film, television, stage, and theatrical productions. They discuss environmental sounds, bioacoustics, dialogue, the nature of communication through sound, but as an added bonus, they drink beer and try to
Stay on target.
find them wherever you get your podcasts and listen to the pure mania of a man who can charitably be described as Doug, the dog from Up, and another man with a soothing and sultry voice trying to get that man to
Stay on target.
That's the Sounds and Cinema podcast. Tune in and listen to the sounds they are creating just for you. And we're back, ladies and gentlemen. We're here trying to finish up with Son of the Pink Panther, the 1993 film, still directed by Blake Edwards.
Well, this is where it really feels like it.
Mm-hmm.
Because we're at Clouseau's graveside, so...
Yeah. And there's like a big statue of him, right?
Mm-hmm. That moves and that watches...
Yeah, it watches him wherever he goes.
Oh, Kato's controlling it. Kato's, like, using it
Yeah.
to attack various surrogate detectives in Clouseau's wake.
Well, a couple things struck me.
This is the third.
One, the
This is the third
statue
time.
moving, they think is funnier than I think it is.
Oh, I thought they were gonna end up. It was gonna be like Ghost Clouseau,
Really?
and the credits seem to feel the same. So
Oh.
we'll
have
talk
to
about
get to
that later on. Yeah. Mm.
But I also thought that, what's his name? Bert Kwok must be older. Because the fight just ended pretty quickly. I thought maybe he's at an age where he can't
Oh, sure.
be fucking around with this stuff for too long.
Well, I don't think he's quite there yet, but I don't know why I'm talking so much about British sitcoms. I'm pretty sure the film is making me. But there's a sitcom.
I think you're a British man.
I am. So that there's a soap opera. No, not soap opera. What am I talking about? A sitcom in. Well, it's. I don't know. It's. Now I said soap opera. That might have been a Freudian slip, and maybe it is more of a soap opera. It's the longest. I think the world's longest running sitcom ever. It's called It ran for like 30 odd years or something. It's called Last of the Summer Wine.
Is it still on?
No. It ended, and the same guy wrote every episode, so I think that's a record as well. It's like him and the guy,
Because the Simpsons are still going.
but it's live action.
All right, calm down. I'm just saying.
First time I've ever badmouthed The Simpsons. But basically, it's about. Oh, I'll tell you. I'll be able to explain it in terms you might understand. It's about three old men in a rural village.
Oh, I'm supposed to get that, old man?
No, not because you're an old man. But one of them is Peter Sallis, who does the voice of Wallace in Wallace and Gromit. Anyway,
Okay.
there are two other guys, and so it was originally these three guys. It was a bit like Waiting for Godot, but done as a sitcom, because all they did was just wander around the countryside doing like stuff. They would get in a tin bath and roll down a hill, that kind of thing.
Okay.
And this went on for years and years, and of course, wasn't you wouldn't think it would last as long as it did, because they were old when they started, and of course they died during filming. I mean, not literally as they were being filmed, but because the series was ongoing. Or like Peter Sallis, I think, became housebound at one point, and so it's like, well, what do you keep doing? So they just kept putting more and more surrogates in and they had to expand it beyond it's these three guys. So suddenly the supporting cast became huge. So any older person in the British film or television industry became a part of this cast, including Burt Kwok. Burt Kwok at one point. And I think this was maybe like 10 or so years after this, but it gives context to you. Like, he's not far away from being in a sitcom, a casting requirement of which is that you have to be retirement age.
Yeah.
To even be considered.
All right.
And it's filmed more or less where I grew up, in Holmfirth. So.
All right.
Anyway, I mean, that was basically... That's a long-winded way of saying,
put that
I
in
agree.
Your bonnet, everyone.
I agree. Burt Kwok is old.
You could have just said that.
I could have just said that, but, you know, sometimes it's the journey, not the destination. That's what we should rename this podcast. The journey, not the destination.
That's all it is for us.
Yeah. But we do have to talk. Obviously, I mean, we don't even need to say it out loud. Even if you haven't seen this movie, you know exactly what happens. Kato teaches him the ways of Clouseau, and they become he becomes his right-hand man for the rest of the movie. Well, yeah,
but doesn't he says, like, isn't there a bit where he says, why don't you hire me to do this, and I'll attack you every day and teach you to defend yourself, or something like that? Based on where he was in the previous movies and what he seemed to think about Clouseau, I just thought the movie's trying so hard to get him into this movie where he's doing things I don't think his character would ever think to do.
No. Also, what happened to his... Surely he has a brothel empire by now.
Yes, right, yeah.
A whole franchise.
Resident president.
Maybe it tanked. Maybe he has to do this because he went bankrupt with his bondage parlors. Seems like an industry that wouldn't necessarily collapse in any economy, though. As Silvio says in The Sopranos, Tony asks him what are the two what are economy proof businesses, and he said certain aspects of show business and art thing. Certain aspects of show business is what I think
great.
Kato was involved in.
Yeah. One of my next notes, we've talked about this before. I think it's funny that every major newspaper is covering Clouseau in a way, even years after his death, because they're reporting that Benigni is his son on the front page of newspapers.
Well, also, isn't this around the time that France started testing nuclear weapons in the ocean?
Probably a bigger story.
And that's like, I can't imagine that Clouseau's illegitimate son is gonna knock that off the headlines. Yeah. So I guess I don't know if you're avoiding talking about it, or I seem to remember you thought it happened in a different movie, but
the Hasidic Jew.
Yeah, Kato dresses as a Hasidic Jew.
Yeah.
Which I feel it's a kind of racism I feel he's earned. If anyone has earned the right to make an off-color racist joke about another ethnic group, it's him.
I've been putting up with shit for fucking years.
But I gotta say, I think they're burying the lead on this comedy, because the best visual gag from Kato in this movie is, I don't even know if they know it's a gag, where he's in his sort of backstage clothes, and he's wearing like a 90s acid rave t-shirt. And that was, just seeing Burt Kwok in one of those was much funnier than, well, the anti-Semitic version of his disguise, for sure. But, you know, it's funnier, and it doesn't hurt anyone, because it's just a joke about an old person wearing a young person's t-shirt.
Right.
And it's even funnier because nobody's drawing attention to it the way that clearly they are when he's dressed as a of Hasidic Jew. That's the disguise he comes out of the fridge in.
Yeah, yeah. But that was the one I referenced where, because it was so... Isn't there a gong that precedes the fridge opening, too?
Now who's being racist?
I would swear there is one.
No, I bet there is. I don't remember.
But
it
then
being
the
a
fridge
gong.
door
But you know
opens.
what? I'm not going to put all my chips on there not being a gong somewhere in this movie. I bet you're right.
Wave off the bet. No, no, thank you.
I'm playing with house money.
But it struck me as funny because they're going back to such a great sublime joke. But the fridge door opens and he kind of comes out like Frankenstein, and he has to take 2 or 3 slow steps to someone to try and strangle them, and it just looks like old age home Kato trying to attack.
Yeah, and my exact note was, and it's a note that goes without saying, it loses something in repetition.
Yes. Yeah.
Also,
Absolutely.
it not being... I realize how essential it being a fridge in a home is. Because this is in a restaurant, right?
This is in a restaurant, right.
That's a whole different deal, I think.
Yeah.
Restaurant fridges are not the same. I mean, it's not... I mean, people literally put whole carcasses of meat in there, so it's not that surprising that an Asian man dressed as a Hasidic Jew jumps out and attacks you. In the same way it would be if it happened to you in your own apartment.
In your own home, you don't expect that. Of course not.
I mean, to be fair, he wasn't dressed as a Hasidic Jew then, but, you know...
Could you imagine, with no context whatsoever in that movie, he just comes out dressed as
I think they could have pulled... It's Python-esque enough that they could have pulled it up. The Pythons tell those great stories about... some of their surrealism that everyone praises was sort of unintentional.
Mm-hmm.
Like when they did their live shows, they were changing costumes so rapidly that sometimes they just didn't have enough time to change out of one costume and into another one for the next scene. So I think Michael Palin tells a story about John Cleese doing a sketch about a working class miner father and his son, dressed when John Cleese is still dressed as a bishop from the previous scene, and everyone's like, "Oh, it's so irreverent and surreal." And it's like, I had no choice; I just had to come on stage and play it as a bishop. It gave the sketch a whole new meaning. It was all about a guy asking a father for his daughter's hand in marriage when his father's now a bishop because he didn't have time to change out of his clothes. Right?
Oh wow.
Anyway. So, yeah, all of that happens.
Well, and because there's this huge shootout in the club, right? Or in the
That's my note.
In the restaurant.
Hefty violence.
It lingers for quite some time.
Yeah.
Where I remember thinking, I'm sort of impressed by the blocking and the shooting of it all.
Yeah.
But even I'm like it's impressive, but I've had enough. Let's go on.
It's a Blake Edwards action sequence, but
I
think it's reflective again of how 80s and 90s action cinema has sort of upped the ante. So the movie kind of feels it has to respond in like.
Oh, I found my note. Uncle Idris. Why is Uncle Idris part of this story?
Oh yeah, that's what he says. He gives a kind of elaborate Arabic name, and then he says, "But you can call me Uncle Idris." Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Should just be Davi the whole time.
Yeah, well, that's where again it feels like it feels like how you structure a Bond movie. You have like these satellite villains to the real villains, and you don't you kind of, and I think you're right as well that it's what they seeded in Revenge with Weber and Lozier, the two Roberts.
Yeah, the two Roberts,
and even that, yeah, because. The whole Diane Cannon thing is sort of similar to the femme fatale wife story here.
True, yeah.
It's just gilding the lily, as they say. Well, my next note is, so I'm sure I'm missing a lot, but my next note is the wedding.
So the whole battle at the palace is taking place.
I mean, what can you say? Robert Darby ends up looking like we now know John Forsyth, and that's it. And then we're at the wedding of Dreyfus and Mrs. Clouseau.
Oh, I remember. I don't know why I cared about this. Well, this is also because when the attack does happen,
Yeah.
Davi seems to be going all out for like big physical comedy and actually being funny in a way that surprised me, and he actually did make me laugh.
Yeah.
And that I kind of rather liked. You know when you watch an old movie too, this is a stupid note, but when you watch an old movie and you see something that surprises you, but it's stupid. Like I remember seeing an Olympic Coke can somebody was drinking.
Okay. Interesting. I feel like you got to keep that shit out of the movie, or your movie's gonna date very quickly.
Yeah.
That's the thing. I don't think this movie is concerned about dating well, like some of
the
Pink Panther movies. Yeah.
Well, his sister does show up for this. We have an
His
award
sister wife.
ceremony. Yeah, we have an award ceremony. It's not exactly sword and drum, pigeon on hat, but it's attempting at least sword play.
It is, yeah.
He stabs several people trying to put it back into its sheath.
It's a rite of passage, right? I think anyone.
Yeah.
And it's like the path to the Holy Grail. Anyone who wants to get the role of Clouseau has to, be the penitent man and spell Jehovah
right,
and then walk down the ILM effect.
It was funny that first of all, that you find out that the sister wife is a sister. So mom had twins.
Yeah, which she never mentioned.
There's always something for some reason, there's always something that makes me laugh when they mispronounce boomp. And you get the eye twitch for Dreyfus again.
Yeah. And he's like, 2 of them.
Yeah.
And then the credits roll to the Perfect Strangers outro.
yeah, exactly. I wrote down the princess loves him for some reason.
Yeah, it's. I mean, I guess that. But there's so much baggage with Dreyfus.
I know.
I suppose as he is in this movie, if you relinquish all the baggage from the argument, then I suppose I can see it. But I mean, how many times did he try and murder Clouseau?
Yeah, right.
I mean, and the weird thing is she talks about, oh yeah, I know, because she calls him Charles before he says Charles, so she knows who he is, presumably through Clouseau. And is it just that Clouseau doesn't know that he's trying to kill him? So it would make I'm already overthinking this. I'm backing out here.
Every time he's trying to kill him,
nobody even had a conversation about this. Why am I bothering?
Yeah, every time he tries to kill Clouseau is always like, no, it's me.
Yeah.
And he doesn't seem to understand, so he might not have ever said that to his one-time lover.
What happened in... I don't know. Because when it gets to the supervillain stage, when he's actively hunting him as a criminal...
Yeah.
I mean, was that must have been before he hooked up with not the princess.
Who's to say?
Well, how old is
timeline-wise, yes. Timeline-wise, yes.
You can use the medium of time to figure that out. It's how old is Benigni? 30?
At least.
So it's 90. Okay, but how old is he in the world of the film? Because he usually plays younger than he is, because he's a lunatic. So he seems younger because he's insane.
It's not on us, Tom. We don't have to figure this all out for them.
You're right. Yeah, we don't have to dig them out of this hole.
Nah. Well, that's it for me, notes wise. You?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Apart
How
from
about a credit check?
Sure. Well, I'll go back. I'll circle back to. I have a credit check for. Oh no, I went all the way back to Revenge of the Pink Panther. Well, that's not good. You know, give me a moment. Oh, now I'm in Pink Panther 2. I really shouldn't have put all my notes on one document. You actually might have to cut this out.
We have a huge shootout of nonsense, and then they escape in cars.
There you go.
See, there we go. Gave you just enough time. Going back in my notes.
So, I think I can remember it anyway. So in the titles, another screenwriting duo who are related.
Oh.
But they're not Edwards these times. And you know what their last names are?
No.
Sunshine.
Oh.
The Sunshine brothers, fathers, sons, whatever. Two people called Sunshine wrote this movie.
Oh, that did they ever?
I assume they're related. I don't know for sure.
Did they ever meet Neil Simon?
And he was like, "This is a great idea. This is a great idea for a play. I'm gonna go back in time, write it, so I can cast George Burns in it before he dies in the movie." Well, so I mean, the first thing that happens is they cut out Benini's head to reveal a digital avatar of the Panther.
Mm-hmm.
So again, it's very much trying to showcase hybrid animation and what it can do.
Oh, I forgot to mention that the movie closes on, that felt good, as that's the new,
Which is his
catchphrase.
catchphrase.
It's the new catchphrase for the new millennium, coming soon to you.
The joke's on us though, right? Because on Italian television there's a commercial for a national beer or something where Benini drinks it and takes a sip and goes, that felt good. And so in mainland Italy,
Yeah.
the audience will be in raptures of applause both times.
Fantastic.
It's like having Ernest in your movie. Didn't he
Is he
come
going
from a
to
commercial?
jail? Is he going to camp? What's he doing?
Didn't he start out in commercials, the character of Ernest? Wasn't he like
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. like I fictitiously revert to Benini did. I just realized that I'm saying that. That's not actually true. I just made that up. That he was in a commercial in Italy. And then, there's as I referenced earlier, there's a credit for Clouseau's ghost.
Oh?
So again, is this another scene I missed? So, or is this another Blake Edwards film that ended up with a lot of footage on the cutting room floor that we didn't see?
I'm unqualified to solve the mystery.
I'm going to go out on a limb and
Also,
say...
don't care.
Also don't care. I'm going to go out on a limb and say, if there is a scene involving Clouseau's ghost, then it should not have been in the movie. The right call was made. But someone was cast as Clouseau's ghost. Oh yeah, a related lighting cameramen and focus pullers, the Woosters.
Okay.
They're both Woosters, but I wonder which is which and who's pulling focus from whom. Wardrobe by Giorgio Armani, which is kind of a throwback to the, I guess, the glamour of European fashion, which was kind of part of the Pink Panther, if not the subsequent movies.
Okay.
And then I will say a curious special thanks. This including a professor from the Jordan Applied Science University. I don't know what he contributed to the film. Also don't know what Beatles producer George Martin did for this film either.
Oh my.
But both of them are thanked in the credits. So, if you know, drop us a line.
Drop us a line indeed.
Why would we specially need to thank George Martin?
You know what to do to tell us. Find us
Yeah,
on
I see.
Facebook.
I get for the first time ever, I gave you a segue. I'm happy to do that every time if you want. I've just never thought of it before.
You're going to have to tell us our last remaining questions as well as what you think of this movie. Are you part of the 6% like us, or are you part of the 90 The 94%.
Jesus fucking Christ. Even I can do that, man.
I must be tired. Because I said 6%, and then I was about to say 96%. And then my brain went, that's wrong, asshole. It's the wrong amount.
I love the idea that when you like see your tip, you're like, these fuckers, they're always under tipping. Always under tipping. I like it.
All right, so find us on Facebook, find us on Instagram. Do or do not find us on X. Go ahead and start a thread or go to Blueski. Is that all of them, Tom? Did you add another one last week?
No, I haven't. Look, I as this podcast designated social media person, you should be grateful that we're out there on Blue Sky. Well, we're playing both sides. However the revolution falls out, whatever side it falls out on, we're covered. We're on X. We're on Blue Sky.
Well, I don't know. We're either covered or we've doomed ourselves to go to jail or be murdered. You never know.
I'll just quit when the whoever blows up the Capitol building.
I'll go the other way.
First, I'll delete the account from the losing side. So
there you go. All right. Or send an email to everythingsequal@gmail.com. That's it. When we hear us next, for some reason, we're going to try and let this series go on.
Yeah.
We're pitching sequels to this mess.
Mm-hmm.
What would you do? Oh, that was Chief Wiggum style.
Is it?
No. Dr. Hibbert. It's like, can you? Yeah, give it a try. It's my job.
It's a shame that the guy they got to replace Dr. Hibbert so that it wasn't Harry Shearer in audio blackface just can't do the laugh.
Oh, really?
I watched one the other day with the new Hibbert and I was like, it sucks. He just can't do the laugh.
That's too bad.
Maybe, I don't know. Can we split the difference and still have Harry Shearer's laugh face?
Just do the laugh.
Can you dub? Is it worse if you dub over a black person doing a black character's voice, or is it better?
Is that all right, or is it still bad? Am I still a bad person?
It's still bad. I know.
I want him to do the laugh.
Yeah. Although saying that, and we're not here to talk about the symptoms, except
yes, we are.
We are always.
We pretty much always are.
Them voices sounding pretty old.
Really?
Old and slow. It's getting really hard to suspend disbelief anymore.
Oh.
Slow. Have you ever heard slow old Flanders? It's really depressing. Slow old Flanders is really depressing. I mean, they're all fucking 60s and 70s. I'm not taking aim at them. And of course, if the series is still going on, then they should still be getting paid to do these voices, and still should be doing these voices.
Sure.
But as a viewer, it's pretty depressing.
All right. Well, on that happy note,
it's getting to that Kermit level cognitive dissonance where you're like, it's just not Kermit. It's not even.
Yeah. It's not even.
That's
close
not
to
even.
Kermit.
That's not even not Kermit. That's not Kermit.